Have you ever started work on a project that was going really well? You found your groove and you were just vibing along, but then a gigantic update crashes through your door that changes everything and essentially forces you to start over? Because that's what happened with me on this topic. Thank you, Warriors website, for murdering my original direction. There is a silver lining to this though, because this blog post is one of the most hilariously stupid PR statements I've read in a long time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the beginning. By now, pretty much everyone has heard of the website family tree update, which added a category for the Dark Forest. As part of the update, Frecklewish, the one from Mapleshade's Vengeance, was declared a member of the Dark Forest, and fiery debates erupted all over the fandom. Humor me with this tangent for a minute, but I thought we all agreed that this family tree was pure bullshit. I mean, come on! The original document said Longtail was a girl! Sure, that may have been a lifetime ago, and the entire website got a huge overhaul since then. But that means nothing when it still has gigantic errors. To this day, the family tree lists Feathertail, Stormfur, and Ashfur as apprentices. If you click on the links, their names are correct on the profile headings, but in the list of profiles, they're still referred to with the paw suffix, along with Bramblestar and Mothwing. The former is really baffling, since Squirrelflight, a warrior at least 1 year younger than him, is called by her full name. And if that all wasn't confusing enough, if you click on Ashfur's page, it starts with a quote from Long Shadows at the start of the fire scene, easily the most well-known scene out of that arc, but the quote is attributed to Ashpaw. And the same mistake is made with a quote from Darkness Within. Are you freaking kidding me? That is inexcusable, especially since this is the big bad from your most recent arc. How do you mess that up? Yet, if this was yet another baffling oversight by the team, it simply would have been corrected and left at that. But no, the story team has doubled down and made it clear to all of us that they don't consider this a mistake. But before we get into that, let's rewind the clock to before this announcement was made, back when the update first came out and the debates began. Those that agree that Frecklewish does deserve cat hell have argued that she broke the warrior code by not helping kits in danger, as the code stipulates to help all kits, regardless of their heritage or origins. Their secondary argument points to her attitude upon finding out the truth about Mapleshade's kits. She goes nuclear on the whole family, physically attacking the mother and all but calling her children abominations. And she let this rage influence her decision to not help when they needed it most. A few days ago, a blog post from the story team appeared on the website, which sides with all the arguments I've just described, officially declaring that yes, Frecklewish does deserve to be in the Dark Forest. Let's take a moment to dissect this little number, shall we? As you know, the Warriors family tree was updated with the Dark Forest section in November of 2021. We here at Warriors HQ can see from various videos, forum chats, and social media posts that the placement of Frecklewish in this section is a topic of debate. To show that the opinions of our fans are very important to us, we would like to address this issue and have asked the story team to share details about why this decision was made. We would also like to confirm that the website team, story team, and authors are very much aligned and regularly communicate about such decisions.
Definitely a tiger because he has the eye of the tiger. Are you sure about that?
Does Frecklewish really belong in the Dark Forest? The story team believes she does. As the warrior code says, no warrior can neglect a kit in pain or danger, even if that kit is from a different clan. Mourning her brother Birchface's death, Frecklewish adores Mapleshade's kits, who she thinks were fathered by Birchface. When she learns that their father was actually the RiverClan Tom who killed Birchface in battle, all her love turns to hate and rage. Frecklewish returns to ThunderClan and says only that Mapleshade fell off the stepping stones, and that there were RiverClan cats on the other bank, who she assumes saved her and her kits. She doesn't bother to even watch to make sure that the kits, who, until that day, she had claimed to love, are rescued, much less make any attempt to save them herself, or to call for help. When a vengeful Mapleshade later confronts her, Frecklewish merely says that she didn't mean for the kits to die, that she thought they would be saved, and immediately snarls that she wishes Mapleshade had died. She shows no guilt or sense of responsibility for having watched the kits struggle while doing nothing. Despite Frecklewish's rage and grief, every clan cat is responsible for the well-being of any kit. Frecklewish is careless with the lives of kits because she is angry, and she assumes that someone else will take the responsibility of trying to save them. While Mapleshade's later crimes, including causing Frecklewish's own blindness and death, several other murders, and long revenge-driven scheming from beyond the grave, are far worse, that doesn't mean Frecklewish's actions are excusable. Not everyone agrees. It can be argued that, because Frecklewish assumed some other cat would help the kits, she doesn't bear any responsibility for their demise. Or perhaps she was punished enough through her blinding and painful death. As we've seen in other cases, the members of StarClan have their own opinions on who should join them, and their choices aren't always perfect. Should Ashfur, for example, have gone to StarClan or the Dark Forest? Many would argue StarClan made the wrong call. Yeah, no shit. But in this case, we agree with StarClan that Frecklewish's callow negligence toward 3 kits in danger, and her lack of remorse for their eventual death, means she belongs in the Dark Forest. So, it's gonna be like that, is it? You sit there, smugly self-assured of your own asinine decisions, while blissfully unaware that you've made your throne out of dynamite. You're so lazy that you didn't even bother to take the 5 seconds needed to find that there is mountains of evidence to prove you wrong. But no, just continue to sit all nice and cozy on your beliefs. If you want to tango, story team, we'll tango. But let me spoil the ending for you. You are about to get destroyed. While it's true that Frecklewish broke the warrior code by not helping the kits, and acted like a colossal asshat after finding out the truth, this doesn't mean that these arguments are complete dog shit. By this logic, Blue Star should also be in the Dark Forest, because she endangered her own kits' lives by taking them into the middle of a blizzard. Hell, she directly caused Moss Kid's death. Frecklewish didn't cause any deaths by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, if you want to play this little blame game, the only cat that can be considered responsible in any way for what happened to Mapleshade's kits is Oakstar. Ravenwing may have misinterpreted the omen and gave him bad advice. Frecklewish may have let her emotions get the better of her in the heat of the moment, but the only reason Mapleshade attempted the river crossing was because she was exiled in order to leave immediately. her kits would have never been in harm's way if it hadn't been for his order. So then why, in the name of Satan, Cthulhu, and terror inexplicable, is Oakstar in StarClan? According to the exact same family tree that started this whole mess, the one guy who is guilty of the exact same crimes as Frecklewish, but even worse, is in StarClan, but she isn't? That makes no sense! What kind of backwards ass glue sniffing, no mask wearing, cousin fucking, weed snorting, crack smoking, thorn kissing, gender partying, blood thinning, Hindenburg sinking logic is this? How did you fuck up this bad? I'm sorry. I'm going to need a minute. Alright, so after several real-life weeks, I'm ready to continue. Aside from the reason I mentioned at the start of this video, the only reason this video took so long is because I had to let this announcement run its course through my veins. It's one thing when fictional characters act like total ignorant asshats, but it's another thing entirely when the authors, the story team, act like insufferable ignoramuses themselves. When I originally started this script before the website announcement, I was actually neutral on the whole Frecklewish thing. My reasoning was all or nothing. If Frecklewish was in the Dark Forest, then so should all of the other adults in ThunderClan. Oakstar, Ravenwing, Bloomheart, everyone that supported the idea of exiling innocent kits who had no control of who they were fathered by. But even then, that reasoning felt shaky. Should we really condemn people to hell for one gigantic mistake in judgment? They may have been the reason why Mapleshade's family was in that position to begin with, but at the end of the day, Mapleshade was the only one who decided to cross the river with young kits, after dark, during a heavy rainstorm, when it would have been clear to even a time-traveling Jayfeather that it was nowhere near safe to do so. It's not like ThunderClan was eager enough to chase them through the mud and rain. She could have waited until dawn. Heck, we don't even know if the two-leg bridges were constructed yet. If they were, she could have taken a detour and used one of those to cross safely. I know, I pointed the finger at Oakstar just a minute ago, but that's the point I'm trying to make here. The whole premise of tragedies like these is that no one was truly at fault. Okay, quick side note. I wanted to clarify that there is no one definition of tragedy, as there are countless subgenres and types across literature. The most accurate label I could apply to Mapleshade's vengeance would be a she-tragedy. Yeah, that's a thing, look it up. Turned revenge tragedy, aka Hamlet. What I find most interesting about revenge tragedies is that the protagonist sets out to get revenge for a wrongdoing, real or imagined, which both apply to Mapleshade's case. She seeks out Ravenwing for messing up the omen, which led to her exile and, in turn, her kids' deaths, which was very much a real slight. But then targets Frecklewish, who, as we'll discuss later, wasn't responsible for their deaths. And then Appledusk, who had absolutely nothing to do with it. His only crime was cheating on Mapleshade. The order of her chosen victims descends from indirectly responsible to completely innocent, mirroring her further descent into madness and hatred, which is just brilliant. Several people may have contributed to its occurrence, but no one can truly share more of the blame than anyone else. Solely blaming Frecklewish for the deaths of Mapleshade's kits and tossing her into the Dark Forest spits on the entire point of this novella and proves that the story team doesn't understand their own source material. I can hear the arguments already. But quiet, Frecklewish followed Mapleshade to make sure she left. She saw the kids fall in the river and chose not to help. That's why she's in the dark forest and not the others. I'm sure that's the argument the story team is using to justify their choice too. But if you spend more than 2 minutes thinking about it, it's clear that this argument doesn't hold water. It just doesn't hold water.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
We already mentioned the fact that other cats have endangered kits and made it into StarClan just fine. But there's a lot of other considerations that didn't even cross my mind at first. Shout out to my peeps on Discord for pointing this stuff out. 1. Frecklewish recently lost her beloved brother to that same river. It's not outlandish to think that she could be traumatized by that loss, and simply felt incapable of even approaching to help. But apparently, StarClan has no sympathy for sufferers of PTSD. Oh, what's the matter? Do you live in a world of ever-present danger and crushing loss? Have you snapped from the constant pressures of clan life and have no real way of coping with it? Well, too fucking bad! To hell with you, bitch! 2. Even if Frecklewish wasn't terrified of the river, would she even be capable of helping? No one in ThunderClan knows how to swim properly, as clearly shown with Birchface and Flowerpaw in this very book. Not to mention that a frickin' flash flood yeeted Mapleshade's family into the torrent. If Frecklewish blindly threw herself into the fray, who's to say that she wouldn't have turned into another corpse for RiverClan to drag out? The knee-jerk argument to this would be to point to Fireheart and Greystripe, who jumped into action to save 2 kits from the flooding river in Forest of Secrets. Neither of them knew how to handle the river, and Greystripe was traumatized from nearly drowning in it a few months ago, but they didn't hesitate. Well, that's not a fair comparison either. Fireheart and Greystripe dealt with a flood, while Mapleshade was hit with a flash flood. Those 2 things are not even remotely on the same level. If you've never seen a flash flood, let me paint you a picture. Imagine Poseidon sent a monster tsunami to the shore, only for that tsunami to get sucked up into a pipe, travel a short distance into the inner city, then gets unleashed from 50 fire hydrants clustered together, the force from the initial tsunami causing the hydrants to explode from the sheer pressure building up all at once, and the shrapnel gets swept up in the raging rapids as it speeds down the street, the narrow layout channeling this wall of water into a swift, vengeful river of death. And the worst part? Most of the time, you won't even hear them coming until it's too late. Flash floods are fucking scary, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So, yeah, to compare that level of destruction to what Fireheart and Greystripe dealt with is insane. And that's not to downplay their efforts. On the contrary, ordinary floods are dangerous too. And even working as a team, they struggled. If a ThunderClan pair can easily drown in a flood, what chance would one stand in a flash flood? None! That's what! Frecklewish was sensible to not get involved. Sure, the warrior code says you have to help kits no matter what. But does that mean you should throw yourself into situations that you have almost no hope of surviving, and where you wouldn't be of any use anyway? If I recall, a certain crotch goblin of Ferncloud and Dustpelt did that exact same thing, which ended up leading to a tribe cat's demise when she attempted to clean up his mess. That's not exactly a comparable situation either, But the point is that sometimes it's good to recognize your limits and know when you be a hinder rather than a help. No one should be punished for that. It's just so hypocritical. When a main character breaks the warrior code to do what's morally right, they're heralded as a forward-thinking hero. But when a side character does something morally questionable, they're made an example out of, and when the fans call it out, the story team uses the warrior code as a shield against criticism. Unfairly enforcing the rules against certain groups, or straight up twisting them to punish those you look down on? StarClan gets more and more like old-fashioned religion every day. And I think that, right there, is the root of this problem. Remember that scene in The Darkest Hour where Blue Star reassured Firestar that StarClan has no control over what happens in their lives, and the clans are not their playthings, as she puts it? Apparently, the story team never got that memo. Ever since Leafpool's wish, StarClan slowly began to morph into the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be. Instead of being subtle guides and gentle sources of advice, they started treating clan cats more and more like their subordinates, nagging and straight up manipulating them into doing what they want. This is no more evident than in the ending of the most recent book, A Light in the Mist. When the clan leaders say that it may be time to reform the warrior code, StarClan responds with, "You have 3 moons to decide." I'm sorry, but who fucking asked you? Since when has StarClan ever contributed to the warrior code? At most, they gave advice to a living cat, which inspired them to propose a new law. At no point in history has StarClan ever had any say in those decisions, let alone in any decision of the living. You know, I never thought I'd say these words, but maybe Needletail was right. StarClan is telling the clans how to live, and that's not okay. As Barbie in Toy Story 3 so eloquently puts it, governance comes from the consent of the governed, not from the use of force. And while StarClan isn't using outright brute force, they are using emotional manipulation, peer pressure through traditionalism, and intimidation to get their way. They use all of those tactics on Squirrel Flight in her Super Edition. And if you really look at it, that could be viewed as a form of bullying. What exactly could the clans do about it? The only thing they could do is leave, go become a loner or a kitty pet, so you can go with your new friends to their afterlife. But that would require abandoning the way of life you love, and if they're willing to do that, it doesn't fix the problems for the loved ones they leave behind. Yet worse still, it kind of feels like the story team is taking advantage of this controversy to justify the Ashfur situation. The revelation that he got into StarClan is the parallel to this scenario, and the "he just loved too much" handwave explanation is, and will probably continue to be, the most infamous meme for the entire series. While I think it's perfectly fair to give them a hard time about this truly awful and toxic message, I don't envy any editors that came on board after it all unfolded. Getting hired to work on a hugely successful franchise, only to have this incel sympathizer shit dumped on your lap, can't be an easy position to be in. But the way they handled it was just terrible. I won't get into too many gory details because I'm planning a whole video about Ashfur. But the entire premise of the broken code feels like a knee-jerk reaction to the backlash. They couldn't just ignore the gigantic knot of ill will the Ashfur decision created, and for some reason, retconning it was off the table, even though it was the only reasonable option, and they have no problem retconning stuff when it's convenient. So they forced him into a villain role. And of course, the only in-universe explanation for all of it was that StarClan made a mistake. Again, the explanation is a simple one-sentence hand wave, downplaying the stakes. No, StarClan, a mistake is when you leave the cookies in the oven too long and they get burnt. You let in a cat that sealed off your connection to the real world, that would have slowly erased all of you from existence, got dozens of cats murdered and enslaved their souls to his every whim, nearly destroyed the clan way of life at its core, and used his powers to manipulate, abuse, and kidnap Squirrel Flight. That's not a mistake. That is the colossal fuck-up of the millennium. Tell me, why should the clans forgive you? Your whole job is to guard and protect them, and you failed in every conceivable aspect. If I were a clan cat, I'd renounce my faith and bail. They clearly can't be trusted. So what if I don't get to go to StarClan? If it's filled with a bunch of brain-dead, self-centered, controlling assholes like them, then I don't want to go. I'll just get adopted by a two-leg and go to their heaven when I die. Fuck those guys. Yeah, maybe I'd be a coward for abandoning the clans. But you know what? Maybe the clans shouldn't be a thing if they're going to be like this. The fact that this has become a natural progression for the plot shows how utterly broken this series is. The editors twisted StarClan to be something they're not, in order to fit the story they wanted to tell. And they're continuing to manipulate their audience by pushing that narrative. Everyone's pissed off about the Frecklewish thing, so let's remind them about how StarClan messed up with Ashfur before. Yeah, it's totally StarClan's fault. None of it came from our laziness and bad writing. No, that was all StarClan. The original series had the underlying message to do what you think is right, even if the society around you thinks otherwise and constantly pushes against you. StarClan is meant to be a passive observer, only providing guidance when absolutely needed, and, in all cases, leaving the clans to live their own lives and make their own choices. But over the years, they have been morphed into a cruel parody of their old selves, completely ruining the themes of the whole series, and introduces subliminal messages that are not good lessons to learn. Remember, kids, always conform. Don't question anything. Don't piss off the wrong people, or you'll be sentenced to hell. Shitty cheddar on a popsicle stick. That is terrifying. But the worst part in all of this is that I'm 99.9% sure that none of this was intentional. Rather, I think the story team just give zero shits and have taken on a corporate mentality. Why else would they lie to our faces like this? Let's dive back into this statement. Right off the bat, the fact that this statement exists at all sets off a lot of alarm bells for me. A confident author doesn't feel the need to go on the defensive about their creative decisions. Authors who are intimately familiar with their worlds and characters don't try to justify themselves to irate fans, unless they're in the very, very narrow margin of cases where they really screwed up royally. Yeah, I'll get to you one day, don't worry. But then they start off by confirming that everyone involved in the story process is in regular communication. We know that's a flat-out lie. The Aarons have admitted on their Facebook pages that they don't communicate between books all that much. And that was in 2010. If they managed to get by then, why the hell would they put in the work now, when they give even less of a shit? Secondly, what does story team even mean? Are they in charge of the plot at large, or just editing? Can they veto the author's decisions? Or are they secretly the real authors, making all of the choices while the Aarons are stuck actually writing the stuff? There is such a thing as too many cooks in the kitchen, guys. And as we're all aware from the entertainment industry, corporate meddling can absolutely murder creativity. A part of me feels bad for the Aarons, because I know, as a writer, it would kill me to be stuck in a situation where a board of executive fat cats tell me how to write my story that I've been telling for almost 20 years. But at the same time, they kind of started this whole mess. Frecklewish isn't the first cat to randomly be sent to the Dark Forest for no good reason. A long time ago, Vicki said that she thinks Hawkheart went to the Dark Forest. At face value, this might be understandable. This is the asshole that murdered Bluestar's mother and told the grief-stricken apprentice to her face that she deserved it. I don't think I'm alone in saying that Moonflower's death was devastating. It's on the same level as Bambi's mom. But if you look at it with clear eyes, it's not exactly Hawkheart's fault. Moonflower was trying to destroy their medicine supply, an action that she and most of the other ThunderClan warriors thought was unethical, but went along with anyway. While Moonflower and the others weren't exactly in a position to disobey orders, that doesn't erase Hawkheart's duty to defend what could be life-saving medicine either. And it's unclear if Hawkheart even meant to kill Moonflower. He was pretty brutal in their fight. It doesn't show remorse for her death, but that could be explained by admittedly justified rage in the heat of the moment. Like it or not, Moonflower committed war crimes, and regardless of whenever she wanted to or not, death is a very plausible consequence for such actions. Did she deserve it? Hell no! But neither does Hawkheart deserve damnation for defending his clan. I could do a whole video about how brilliant this scene is, so I'll leave it at that. For now, let's get back on topic. Like many of the Aaron's statements, the declaration of Hawkheart going to the Dark Forest was contradicted by Vicki herself, when a fan asked the same question in 2014. This time, Vicki stated that he went to StarClan, once again contributing to the theory that the Aarons are just making this stuff up as they go. Yet, Hawkheart's case was tame in comparison to the absolute shitstorms we're going to talk about next. You guys remember that old Lily Whisker and Brightflower mess? They were arguably even worse cases than Frecklewish. So, a while ago, there was a fan named Su Susann who had a Facebook page to confirm facts about the series, mostly about background kits that were never named. Vicki Holmes herself confirmed that what Su said goes. She endorsed her as her official spokesperson.
You serious?
That all blew up in their faces when Su confirmed that Lily Whisker, the OG Briarlight of WindClan, went to the Dark Forest because she was bitter about becoming paralyzed and forced to retire so young, and that Brightflower, Yellowfang's mother, also went to the Dark Forest because she was full of hate towards Yellowfang for supposedly killing her 2 young kids. Fans were rightfully pissed off about this, because it's totally natural to feel bitterness and hatred in their situations. Punishing people for not being emotionless robots and reacting negatively to traumatic scenarios is completely ridiculous. What, you want them to be happy that they're paralyzed from the waist down and that their babies were slaughtered in cold blood? Are you insane? Since then, Vicki pulled a 180 and said Su's confirmations are not canon, retconning everything that she has said, but their relationship is still a mystery. Did Vicki actually intend for these facts to be canon and allowed Su to be her spokesperson until it became inconvenient for both of them? Was she just humoring a diehard fan? We'll never know, since Vicki left the team shortly after the Spotted Leaf's Heart controversy, and Su's page has been deactivated. Either way, I think this is still all sorts of messed up. Again, allowing a random fan to declare anything they want canon doesn't paint a strong, confident picture of yourself, and shows your fanbase that you really don't care about the world you created that much. But if that's not the case, and everything Su said truly came from Vicki herself, then she knowingly let a hardcore fan, who, in all honesty, was probably underage, be her fall guy, taking the heat for her controversial choices. When Spotted Leaf's Heart came out, some people were blaming her for it, claiming that Spotted and Thistle was Su's idea. Now, I personally find that highly unlikely, as Vicki confirmed that she's not an official editor or writer a year before Spotted Leaf's Heart came out. Besides, who at HC would let a fan write an official novel for their highly profitable franchise? Not even they could be that stupid. Yeah, Vicki again spoke out that Su wasn't involved after the Spotted Leaf debacle, but in all honesty, Su should have never been in that position to begin with. When Su was claiming to be an official editor, did Vicki ever counter that? As far as I can see, no, she didn't. And just to be clear, I don't blame Su for any of this. She was, more than likely, a die-hard fan who had the opportunity of a lifetime to fill in the cracks of the series with her headcanons and answer other fans' questions. She had to be over the moon to have the position she had. She was probably lying to herself along with everyone else when she claimed to be an official editor. No matter what the setup was, Vicki ultimately took advantage of a fan's excitement to divert some of the heat away from herself. Even if she didn't intend to do that, she's an adult and she should have known better. It was an awful and shameful situation that never should have happened. Just when I think I couldn't lose any more respect for the Aarons than I already have, I keep finding garbage like this. Now, I don't mean to imply that the Aarons are bad people. There's no way to declare that from just this alone. At most, you could consider them bad authors and terribly naive to not see the potential harm that could come from Su's endorsed position. As for the website and story teams, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe they're just doing their jobs. Maybe some of them don't like the decision but got outvoted. But frankly, I'm sick of giving these guys the benefit of the doubt. The facts is that they lied to us. They cherry-picked information in their argument, citing the warrior code to damn Frecklewish, while conveniently forgetting that Oakstar committed the exact same crimes but got into StarClan just fine, and completely ignored the nuances of the situation that made Frecklewish incapable of helping to begin with. This statement reeks of corporate BS. It feels so soulless and empty. In fact, if you took a DNA sample from this announcement and another sample from the purpose was to provide a sense of pride and accomplishment from that horrible EA comment, I wouldn't be surprised if they were an exact match. You know, at this point, it doesn't seem entirely implausible that whoever EA put in charge for PR back then got canned after the backlash, then got hired at HC to run PR for Warriors. Hell, maybe the story team is EA. That certainly would explain why these recent decisions are so unnaturally awful. The fact that Warriors has declined to this state, where none of it is made from a place of passion or creativity, it is managed by greedy, out-of-touch fat cats that try to manipulate the fans the same way that game companies have for years. It just drains me. I feel like the friend of a person in an abusive relationship, bashing my head against the wall and asking them for the third time that week, why don't you just leave? They've treated you terribly and they're never going to change. Seriously, guys, why are you still torturing yourselves? Why are you still reading this crap? I am glad that everyone was on a united front about this issue, enough to get the story team's attention and make them sweat. But come on, you deserve better than this. Push back and demand more from the titles you love. As long as this soulless process of writing books is supported, it will continue, and it may spread to other franchises as well. For the sake of creativity everywhere, I'm begging you, readers, HarperCollins, please, just stop. Please, just stop. Thank you to my patrons, Deceased Hobo and Mage Wesley, for their support. It really helps a lot. If you'd like to help me continue to make content in the future, check out my Patreon below. Don't want to make a long-term commitment? No problem. I just started a Ko-fi page, so you can make a one-time donation if you want. As always, thanks to the amazing artists out there that contribute to my channel and allow me to use their work. The usual suspects include Zundel, Cordy4N, Ivy Thistle, Cascading Serenity, Nifty Senpai, Warrior Cat 3042, Izumi Fangs, and Calico Cat. The new guest artists for today are What the Honk, Shiny Aura, Kappa, Hydra Yeen, Bored Ghost, Hibiscus Milk Tea, Witherstar Draws, and S. Slippery. Words can't express how thankful I am for all of you. You make my videos a lot less ugly. That's all for today, guys, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.